but I think we're back and we'll get going with the organic product review here. And again, keep those questions coming if you got them.
Good, thank you, Ilya. And again, Mac Earhart, for those of you that don't know me, I'll be up here or talking virtually with you with Jake Hansen, who is our product manager. Jake walks a ton of plots. We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. And we have so many products this year and so many new products for the Albert Lee team that we are also asking Matt Nielsen, who is the Eastern Regional Sales Manager, to chime in and talk us through some of the Blue River products with which we're less familiar. So with that, we'll just get started. I'm not, again, in the interest of time, I'm going to spend a ton of time on this, but I thought it was worth mentioning again where Viking and Blue River corn and soybeans come from. So Blue River, currently, the current Blue River lineup is 100% based on the former Pegasus breeding program, now owned by FBN. And the upside of that breeding program is it's proprietary and organic friendly. Many of the inbreds and hybrids developed in that program were developed with organic farmers in mind. And they have a nice broad testing network, and that's gotten bigger under the ownership of FBN. The downside is it is, again, a limited in scope. So they were not, once FBN purchased Blue River, they were not able to make crosses with other breeding programs. And so there's a narrower scope there. And some of the dealers have noticed that, they've lost certain hybrids that were there, they really liked, and they can't get them anymore. Viking, on the other hand, has access to large and small breeding programs, and we've built our Viking organic corn lineup with organic farmers in mind, obviously. But the downside of that broad access to these breeding programs that are sometimes worldwide programs is that almost all those breeding programs are really aimed at conventional corn. And so we're in there, and Jake's walking plots and looking at experimentals. Most of these experimentals were developed with conventional farmers in mind. So we have to pick and choose between them to find the ones that have the good emergence and the other qualities that we're looking for an organic farmer. And the future of this, though, we're really excited about, which I mentioned previously, is the ability, to offer broad access to not only that legacy Pegasus FBN breeding program, which we are fully licensed for, but also and then the large and small breeding programs that Viking has used in the past, but to begin to make proprietary crosses across these different breeding programs aimed specifically at organic farmers. And I think we're really excited about that. This is just one map. We could have a map of the whole United States with probably 3,000 dots on it, but this is the actual corn testing sites just for the Viking program in 2022. So these are all plots that Jake put together. Most of them are 40 hybrids in each location, or excuse me, 40 hybrids in each plot. And then some locations have 2 or even 3 different trials by different maturities, because we have a 80 to 90 day trial, 90 to 100 day trial, etc. And so there's a ton of plots out there that Jake walks, looking at hybrids and selecting hybrids for Viking organic corn and also for Viking conventional corn. And many of these locations also include the Pegasus breeding locations. So he will this year get to see those trials as well and begin to get our arms around the best Blue River hybrids and the experimentals that are coming out of the FBN program. And also, this is not this is a limited map. This is not all the locations that are available to us, because we do have access to a lot of breeding programs, and many of those breeding programs allow us to walk sites in other locations. So this year, Jake will likely be making a trip to Pennsylvania and New York to look at hybrids out in the east, and in the card someday he may be looking at hybrids in the Pacific Northwest as well. So we wanted to stop there, and we've been doing this at all the dealer meetings, and this is I really appreciate some feedback from the folks in the room. So we have our own ideas about what makes the best organic corn hybrid, and we have an intentional list that we've developed over the years that we look at every year or two, probably every 2 years, to say, okay, we still think these are the 10 most important characteristics of an organic hybrid, listed in order of priority. But this is a great opportunity to get feedback from dealers directly in different parts of the country. So I'm going to just say, in your mind, if you were able to design an organic corn hybrid, what would be the top? Maybe don't go to that yet. Yeah. So what would be the top the 5 most important characteristics of an organic corn hybrid, and if you could please type those into the chat box, we'll record those, and we're going to take all this information back and use it to reevaluate our evaluation process to make sure we're meeting the needs of our customers and the things that you folks are thinking about. So if somebody, if a couple of you could type what you think is the most important characteristic for an organic corn hybrid, I'd really appreciate it, and we will take that down. And it was emergence, canopy, and yield. So agree with all 3. Emergence in our book is, we'll show you in a minute what we think about. Flex ears, there's another great one. That somebody mentioned, or Mary mentioned canopy. I absolutely agree. Speed to canopy is super important. Emergence, early growth, does well under all conditions. Thanks, Mike. That's a great comment. Anybody else can chime in there. And if we move ahead and you have another idea, please just put it in the chat box, and Jake and I are going to capture all these. And again, we'll use them to reevaluate the process by which we look at organic corn hybrid. Stress tolerance. Thank you, Mary Howell. With that, maybe we'll just go ahead again. Please continue to put things in that chat box as you think of them. We'll go ahead, and these are the 10 or 11 things that we think about in order when we're evaluating new potential hybrids for organic corn. This is in what the Viking brand has used in the past. And number 1 for us has been emergence. So that's how to, corn getting out of the ground as quickly as possible. And then again, to Mary's point, that speed to canopy is super important, and for obvious reasons in organic farming. For number 2 for us is adaptability, and that means a couple things. So ability to cover a significant environmental range, and that could mean different things. That could mean geography, could mean soil types, could mean planting populations, but different environmental conditions. But also definitely one thing we look for in organic hybrids overall is the ability to move south, because in general, organic farmers are planting later than their conventional neighbors. And so they're planting hybrids that are maybe on the early side for their zone. And so we need to be looking for hybrids that move south well out of their normal area of adaptation and do well in more southerly areas. And not every hybrid can do that. And some of the hybrids in our lineup, frankly, don't do that. And we try to call those out, like 5885 is an example of a hybrid that doesn't move south well. And we definitely, Jake will mention that when he talks about it, we mention that it needs to be kept in zone. And by that we mean it doesn't move south. Yield, obviously, that's what pays the bill. It's super important. Notice that for us, that's number 3, because you can't get yield if it doesn't come out of the ground. It's basically, that's why emergence is so important. And to be honest, this is the 4th meeting we've held this week, and emergence has been number 1 in all 4 meetings. So it kind of confirms the way we think about it. Obviously, yield matters a lot. Producibility, agronomics, ear flex, those things are all important, and I'm going to skip over those now. Dry down has become more important, and we heard that again yesterday, and maybe this year we move that up further up the chart to number 5 or something, because dry down is important to organic farmers that are harvesting for grain. We'll talk about more of these as we talk about individual hybrids, but I think I'll stop there for now. And again, if you have an additional thing that you think we should be thinking about or that you believe is super important to organic farmers, you can put in the chat box or email or call us. And so with that, I'll turn off my microphone and turn it over to Jake and Matt to talk about individual products, and I'll chime in every once in a while when I can't restrain myself.
Okay, thanks, Mac. If you can't hear me, just shoot something in the chat box, and I'll try to talk louder. A little bit about myself. I've been with the Seed House here for 12 years now, 11 of which I've been working with Mac on this lineup and adapting our testing network and setting those up every year, both for our Viking brand and now going forward into with Blue River. So it's going to be an interesting fall getting out and walking a lot of these locations. I'm looking forward to it. Starting out with a couple of products on the Viking side at an 85 and 88 day. The 5885, a very high test weight grain. As you see on that last bullet point, it has made Grain Miller's approved hybrid list, which is pretty exciting for us. But this is one of those hybrids that does not move south very well out of its 85-day zone. It really needs to be kept in zone for the best performance. If you absolutely need to drag a similar maturity hybrid south, I would go with his sister, the 4588. And I say sister, it actually shares both parents with that 85 day, but it also adds another aspect on the female side to improve its health and its standability as it moves south. It keeps its height, maintains a little more robust health going into the fall in southern locations. But two very nice products that have worked really well for us. Next up, these were two new hybrids last year, or actually I should say for this year in 2022 that we launched. Both, they complement each other very well. Similar plant type, similar stress tolerances. Both have a nice flex ear on them, and they maintain their health very well going into the fall. And that 89 day, I'm not afraid of that one, even going south out of Minnesota as an early hybrid. So both of these are two that really fit a bill as far as the broad adaptability, emergence, and plant height. I think they both check a lot of boxes on organic farms. We were very limited on that 93 day, the 6293 this year. We had some production issues with it. I think we've got those fixed now for this coming season, and we hope to have a good supply of that one going forward. And now I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk a little bit about these 3 Blue River numbers.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, and just as well, you know, mention to me if you can't hear me well. Just real quick about me, I'm Matt Nielsen. I've worked with Blue River. This will be my 4th sales season, and I'm based in Centerville, Maryland, in the Mid-Atlantic on the Eastern Shore there. So look at a lot of varieties from that lens as well as out in the territory over the past few years. 22K32. This one, when we first brought it out year before last, we had actually pinned it at an 85 day. After evaluation, we decided that it really sits in that 89 day slot a lot better. Very adaptable hybrid. This one was probably the most exciting that was coming out of the program at the Kelly plant, and the program with FBN and Pegasus at that time in that slot. Very adaptable. Flex ear, so it's got that aspect, flex ear, but very girthy. So you'll see it often at 18-20 round ears. It can move south. It's got very good movement east as well. Seen it in Michigan doing extremely well. It's into New York. It's not terribly tall plant, but it does have the height of the program that folks here are used to. And it's got great, solid disease package and plant health. It's a good silage dual purpose as well. So this one's got nice numbers on silage. Moving forward, the 90 day, these two products kind of work well with each other. I would say that once again, after more evaluation, the 30K84 typically comes in dries down more like a 93 day. And conversely there, the 34K79 really fits in that 95 day slot a little better after we've looked at it out across the country. These two are both grain hybrids for sure. We've brought a little bit more of a shorter stature with these. They're fixed ear, so gonna do much better in a higher population. One aspect here is that the 30K84 has shown itself to be the tougher of the two. So in what we've noticed and through the data, we've seen that 30K84 in a low fertility environment can really outperform the 34K79. But once you're into a high fertility environment and things are going well, the 34K79 can lap the 30K very quickly. So kind of looking at those as a workhorse and a racehorse kind of together is one way to look at those. But really good grain quality, nice test weight, but for sure grain hybrids. And the 34K79 did extremely well in Pennsylvania. Obviously, I'm coming from the east, but in some of the plots we've seen that do very well in Pennsylvania and New York. Top plots for us there.
All right, on to kind of the core of the Viking lineup for the past few years. Starting with that 8495, we've sold that one now, I think 4 or 5 years in our organic lineup, and it's been a stud for us. We've seen it go just about everywhere in terms of environments. It's been planted down as far south into Illinois many times. Makes great Miller's List. If I could change one thing about it, I would improve its overall emergence. But if it's getting planted a little later into some warmer soils, it's still going to do very, very well. Sister hybrid to it that was new just a couple of years ago is the 5296. Does share a parent with the 8495, which was exciting because it produces seed extremely well. But this one is not quite as stress tolerant as the 84. Really needs to be kept on a little bit better ground where fertility is a little better, and even one that maybe holds a little more water. The 5296 will definitely improve on the 8495 in those situations. And then wanted to just complement both of them with the 4597. A little bit later maturity, flowers just a touch later, but it dries down almost as fast as the two predecessors there. I think the worst I've ever seen it was coming about 0.4 of a point wetter. Usually it's on average about 1 to 2 is all, with same test weight. What you're going to get a little bit more of out of the 4597 is you're going to improve your emergence score over the 8495, and you're going to have more plant height. 8495 has never been a tall hybrid. I'm 6'5", and I always know when to get to it because it's only about a head taller than me versus just about everything else in the plot.
Good. And Greg had just asked about to explain pure and ultra pure, and I'm going to do that right now. So thanks for the question. So
Hey,
those
Max,
of you,
let me just jump in. There was a question on the dual purpose hybrids as well. So maybe make a shout out to the grain silage at this point as well.
sure. Good point, and I'll take a look at that. One thing I was looking at is, oh, we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so in terms of purity standards in the Viking brand, obviously purity matters a lot to organic farmers because it matters to their customers, and the absence of GMOs is a crucial piece of the organic marketing. And so we spend a lot of time on both corn and soybeans making sure that A, we're doing our best to keep the seed pure, and B, that we are being transparent about the level of purity in our seed. And so internally, in the Viking brand, we at one point we verified with non-GMO verified project and just decided it was too cumbersome and also didn't adequately convey the differences between hybrids. And so we switched to an internal branding, and that internal branding is the pure and the ultra pure. So if it has the pure badge on it, and it'll be on the bag of seed as well, that means we guarantee that it's 99% free of GMOs. If it has the ultra pure badge, we guarantee that it's 99.9% free of GMOs. And in fact, up until for the last 5 years, we've never had a positive test on ultra pure corn. I'm not going to guarantee it's 100% free every time, but we've never had a positive test. But and what that does, it gives the farmer peace of mind that they know exactly how the level of contamination in the seed that they're planting, but it doesn't protect that corn from being pollinated by neighboring fields. And that's what Pure Maize is, right? So for those of you that have worked with the Blue River brand in the past, and actually at one point we had Pure Maize in a Viking lineup many years ago, and when we were working with Blue River back in the beginning. And the Pure Maize is a really amazing, naturally occurring pollen blocking system, which obstructs all corn pollen, not just GMO pollen, but all corn pollen other than the pollen of the same plant that's pollinating itself. So I should say the same set of genetics. So if you plant, I'm trying to come up with an example quick, but if you plant 54 PM37, for example, it's only going to be pollinated by other 54 PM37. And so the beauty of that is you can plant 54 PM37 right up next to your neighbor, and your neighbor can have Smart Stacks or Acre Max or whatever it is, and that field will not pollinate your Pure Maize corn, and the grain that you take off that field will be definitely free of GMOs. There's a couple challenges with pure maize. One is that because it only accepts its own pollen, it doesn't do well in 4-row testing. So when you think of it, have 4-row plot testing, that the outer 2 rows of those 4 rows frequently are being pollinated by the neighboring corn. And so since pure maize can't be pollinated by its neighbors, it can only pollinate itself. It's essentially getting a little bit pollen starved. And so for that reason, the pure maize hybrids often suffer in 4-row testing, and that's why or Blue River hasn't put them in like university plots or first trials anymore, because they don't do as well as they don't express their yield fully because they're not being fully pollinated. It's also true on a farm. I think when Blue River first launched pure maize, they asked that their customers all put it in at least 20-acre blocks. That's actually not necessary. 4 acres is fine as long as it's all together and it can pollinate itself just fine, and it will express its yield. So if there's any more questions about the difference between pure maize and pure and ultra pure, please put them in the chat box. Oh, I should say, and again, this is a little different because we're doing this by Zoom. So when you look at your price sheets, you'll see pure, or you will see ultra pure corn, and you'll see pure corn, and then you'll see some hybrids that don't have a badge. And the hybrids that don't have a badge, they're still certified organic seed, but there's not a purity guarantee on them. And in reality, we're not going to sell organic seed corn test higher than 1.5%. So you can be sure that it's going to be lower than 1.5%, but we only have the 2 badges, the 99 and the 99.9. If you or your customer really wants to know, okay, well, I really need to know exactly what the GMO percentage is in a particular hybrid that is not badged, shoot us an email, talk to your rep, and we will get that information back to you, because we want to be fully transparent with our customers about the GMO standards. Thanks. Oh, one thing I wanted to say, so we obviously don't have time today to talk about every single hybrid and every single soybean variety. So we're taking a selection of them. And by all means, we get that people need to know the differences between these hybrids. And so please, this is going to be a continuing conversation. Talk to your RSM. Talk to somebody that you can email us for more information about a particular hybrid that we didn't talk about today, and we'll always support that to the best of our ability, support your questions.
And
Thanks, Mac.
Mac, do we have a slide on grain silage hybrids later? Should we just wait for that, or do you want to explain?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, we do. Okay, so we'll circle around to that dual purpose question in a minute here.
Great. Moving right along. So Blue River 38M23, this is new for us. And I'm going to apologize right off the bat. I don't have a huge amount of information on it besides the bullet points we see here. Have not seen it a huge amount across the country yet, but we're reaching out to our friends back at the Kelly station and some of the folks there at FBN and going to get some more information for you guys on this. So reach out to us in the future so we can share with you. But once again, we've really focused on bringing the plant height down the past couple of years with the FBN program, and so this one is going to bring that grain hybrid, lower plant, shorter plant, lower ear placement, and it does. I remember Steve Sick there was, this one is going to need a little more on the conventional side, perhaps a fungicide treatment. So for plant disease, we need to evaluate this a little bit in the organic system, but we'll get more information for you. Moving along, the 42C87, we've had this for 2 years, and this is a really exciting variety. It's had extremely good performance both as a grain and a silage. So this one is awesome dual purpose to the question that came out earlier. It's got really great silage numbers. The milk per ton, very high, good digestibility. It's a fixed ear, but it does have a nice, it's not a, it's got a lot of girth to it. It's fairly tall plant, but a lower ear placement. It has the ability to move east and west, although it does need to stay in the zone of, needs to kind of stay in that 98-day zone. But this one, I've just got a report on it from Michigan. It's looking great. Consistent ear size in that 18 to 20 around or 18 around and 32 long. So this one's been doing very well across the country this year. So that one's to look at that moving forward this year. Good stay green. Good for earlage. Yes, this one would be good for earlage. Yep, absolutely.
A couple more from the Viking side of things. Starting with the 8500 at a 100 day. It is its half sister to our 8495 again. So it's going to bring a lot of good drought tolerance, stress tolerance, especially as it moves west into southwest Minnesota, across the Dakotas and northern Nebraska. Extremely good tolerance to alkali soils, as I saw just earlier this week with a customer who has soils upwards of high 7s, low 8s for pH. So very good stress tolerance on this one. And again, not a tall hybrid. It is more of a shorty, similar to its half sister with the 84. 4602 was a new one about 3 or 4 years ago again. And it was one that we added because of its consistency going across locations from Nebraska all the way out to the East Coast. Just a real strong performer, both in overall plant health, fall intactness, stress tolerances have been very good. I wish it had a little more test weight to it. Not that it's bad. It's one of those very visually good looking grain that you think is going to hit that food grade quality, but it's just not quite there. But overall, just been a very solid performer, and one that Carl Gaudian doesn't let me forget, that was an organic hybrid first and then moved into our conventional lineup. All right.
Yeah, I'll take this slide. So one, and I was going to add both those hybrids Jake was just talking about are really pure grain hybrids. We will get to the question on the grain silage hybrids in a minute. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was the perception of yield in organic corn. And we've gotten this in from different dealers, and we've certainly heard it in the past that some customers have the perception that organic corn, organic hybrids just simply can't yield as much as conventional untreated. There's an awful lot of Pioneer conventional untreated, LG conventional untreated, and regional brands conventional untreated that gets planted. And I had a dealer in Northern Illinois tell him that he's been repeatedly told that conventional untreated yields 20 to 30 bushels more than conventional corn, or excuse me, than the organic corn that they can plant. And I'm here to tell you that's simply not true. So some of the best yielding hybrids available today to conventional farmers are also available in an organic bag. And this slide, pokes that a little bit. I'd have a similar slide for some trials that we had in Ohio and other places. Not every hybrid that we have, but some of the hybrids that we have that are specifically aimed at grain yield are just simply the best available hybrids out there. And they will run with anything in a Pioneer bag or a LG bag. So for example, Viking 4602, you can see they're showing up first in several first trials. And these first trials, of those of you that are familiar with them, are managed conventionally with fertilizer and pesticides and all the rest of it. And there's about 60 entries, somewhere between 50 and 70 entries. And almost all the entries are, the latest, greatest, AcreMax, SmartStax, whatever. And the best genetics from these competitive companies. And our conventional non-GMO hybrids are yielding just as much, right? So they're showing up very well. They're not winning every trial. I don't want to say that, but they are very, very competitive genetics. And my point here is that, yeah, we have Viking 4602 in this trial as a conventional hybrid, but guess what? We also sell it organically, and it's produced organically, and it's certified organic seed. Same with 5104. Same with 5200. These just the main point is here. If somebody tells you that organic corn doesn't yield as much as conventional corn, I would beg to differ.
All right, so Matt and I will kind of tag team this one just a little bit, starting with the Blue River 49M23 as a brand new product. Matt, you want to tackle that one quick?
Sure. Yeah. This one was one of the most exciting products that we were excited that were coming on this year. And it's got incredible numbers on grain and silage yields. So a lot of yield, and we've seen it out in the plots a little bit this year. It's one thing to note on it, and Jake picked up on this early, the semi-fixed nature of the ear, and which is kind of unique to some extent. It does need to stay in zone, but this, under the high fertility soils and that kind of management, I think this one has a huge amount of yield potential. Go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, and I would definitely mirror what he just said on that one. Like crunching a lot of numbers last fall, this winter and spring on yield and performance. The 49M23 was very impressive looking, both for yield and for silage, which is why I partnered it on this slide with our 5104 Viking, which has been kind of our standard dual purpose hybrid for grain or silage. Been in the lineup for a number of years now. Always been a pretty stable product across locations, very robust, healthy plant. One thing, again, if I could change one thing on it, I would improve its overall emergence. Once it gets out of the ground, it grows extremely well. It's just getting that far. So definitely one you want to plant into warmer soils. But I think the 49M23 is a good hybrid. These two are going to be competing for the same space. And I think the 49M brings that extra emergence on that over that 5104. But I think both of these hybrids are definitely ones to keep eyes on moving forward. Go ahead, E. Margaret, you said, please pay attention to LSD values and give these. Oh, good point, Margaret. Good point. That's definitely something we'll keep eyes on moving forward. I know in our internal data, that is always something that we keep an eye on when we're looking at overall yields. On to a couple of true grain hybrids again on the Viking side. 8404 being a brand new hybrid, pretty exciting product to look at. Very, very nice grain quality. It's one that I'm definitely going to be submitting to grain millers for that food grade approval from them. It's going to bring the plant height into a medium tall category. Not huge, but the stalks on it are very strong. I didn't see any bad habits last fall walking through plots. One nice thing about it, moving across locations with disease tolerances, Gauss's wilt in the west, tar spot in the east. Very, very clean hybrid. Walked a few heavy tar spot plots last fall in Wisconsin and Illinois, where a lot of hybrids around this one were getting just destroyed by tar spot. This one stayed clean, very few lesions, and it definitely brought a lot of yield to the table as well. 1806 has been another high quality grain hybrid for Viking, meeting that grain miller's accepted list again. Extremely good performance on dry land out in eastern Nebraska, western Iowa, even into the Dakotas as a later maturity. It's going to work really well. As you move it east, it will start to reduce a little bit in test weight, not a terribly large amount, but it still met that grain millers even coming out of southern Wisconsin and Illinois. So very good product to look forward to in our lineup for those true grain acres.
So 54
Matt,
sure, yes. So 54 C27, this was another highlight product for us when it came out a year before last. That the breeding program, Steve Sick always referred to this as his mailbox corn or his driveway corn. It's a beautiful plant that's got a nice low ear placement. A good, nice, 18, 20 round ear that can flex. It's a semi-flex variety. It's quick to canopy, nice lateral or horizontal leaf structure on the lower leaves. It's got a ton of yield potential, but it does need to be on those higher fertility environments and not experience too much stress in the growing season. This one, we did have a couple issues with stalks in when it did get stressed out. So I've been placing this on irrigated ground in the east. It's done very well, can move south, and obviously can move west, and has been a top hybrid for, I know Scott Osborne has looked at it quite a bit out here out in the Midwest and Iowa, and seen a ton of great yield for it. So this one is a very solid product. It's kind of competing for acres on the 54 PM 37, which is, of course, to note is a pure maize variety. Awesome, that's great to hear. So yeah, so thanks Rob. So it's got the ability to move. I'd say this one is quite adaptable, and I've even seen it down into Maryland, into kind of 112 plus corn country, and it does well there. So the 54 PM 37 pure maize variety, this is a shorter plant. This is really a full-on grain variety. It is a pure maize, so obviously the attributes that Mac was talking about, it's also on the grain millers list. So this one is a food grade variety with the pure maize package, so that's an extremely valuable asset for this one. And we're working with some, as a side note, with some food processors to hopefully get it on their recommended lists. I'm thinking of Aztec and Milling and others. And so this one is got quick to canopy, a ton of yield on it, great grain quality, very high test weight, obviously, semi-flex ear, very tight husk on it. So if you're in a situation where you're not necessarily like an open husk and have issues potentially with that, if you're getting late season rain, this one holds a tight husk. The dry down obviously is going to be a little bit slower because of that high test weight and tighter husk. So it's got very good southern movement as well. This one, obviously, depending where we're at, Rob, but this one can take a higher population. It's not a fixed ear, so it does have that flex in it as well. So it can move, I'd say, in population up and down. Thanks for the question. All right, I guess I'm still on. So 57A30. A lot of folks on this call recognize this hybrid. It's been around with us for a long time. It's a stalwart for sure. Very, as we've noted on the subheading, proven performance. It was a top yielder for a long time. It's tough to put it in that top yield category still with all the new genetics that we've been brought to the fore here lately, but it's got excellent vigor, great emergence. I'd say this is also adaptable. It can move, it can take some stress. It's got a great potential on silage. Actually, this one has been I would kind of classify this as dual purpose. I've had excellent silage in Pennsylvania with this one, but got grain quality, nice consistent ear size. The one thing I'll say is this one, you have to get it on time. I wouldn't say early, but you have to get it on time. So this is one to make sure that you don't let sit in the field too long. But it does have great dry down as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Another one that, Matt, do you want to address that question from Rob real quick?
So I would say
for earlage.
Right, earlage on this. Rob, I'm going to get back to you on it. I want to talk to some customers here in the East that I know, I think have used this, that may be on the call, but I do know the shank on it is one that, kind of getting back to my point about getting it on time. If you're letting it, let me get back to you on that. Rob. Appreciate it. It's a shorter ear shank is one thing to think about. Thanks for the question.
Okay, on to the Viking 4808. This is one that has been kind of the staple for us in that 108 day, 7-8 day category. Extremely good ear flex. This is regularly commented to us as one of the fastest out of the ground in our lineup. So it emerges very, very quickly, gets to canopy very well. Good plant health going into the fall. It definitely can take some stress out west in dry land, and it's moved east. really well into Indiana, Ohio, and further on. Very, very good drought tolerance and disease tolerance overall with things like Goss's wilt, leaf blight, or gray leaf spot. It's just one that it is nice to know that it's going to stay there for quite a while out in those fields. It is a dual purpose hybrid for us. We'll touch on kind of our qualifications for that here in just a minute. But we've had a lot of good results coming out of Wisconsin, Michigan, University of Minnesota on silage quantity and quality with this one. So it's definitely one that I feel meets those silage standards that a lot of folks are looking for, whether you're feeding dairy or beef cattle. All righty.
Great, thanks. So the 62G22, this one has been in the lineup for a while as well. 110 day. Although this is one that I think really would fit in that 107 day slot, maybe a little bit better. Well, I'll say it dries down like 107 day. It's got excellent dry down. And as a side note to the 57A30, this is a great pairing in field. But if you want to split a field, the two will be ready just about the same time. The difference here is the 62G22 is a flexier, so it has that aspect to it, a full flex variety. A little bit of a shorter kernel. I think that's part of the reason we have that good dry down. Quite a bit of cob, but it's got awesome grain potential as well as the silage potential. So tall plant, full flex, good amount of cob there. So I would say this one is been a great dual purpose, but the grain guys definitely planted quite a bit. And so this has been, it has good late season integrity. And this has been basically one of our great sellers for quite a long time across, whether you're in the Midwest or towards the East. It's going to compete pretty heavily now with the 64K93. This is a 111 day that we brought out last year, and it's quickly becoming a really strong product in the Blue River lineup. This one was talking with Fred Wiltz at the breeding program, and it's one that they almost passed over. He had kind of looked at it, and we decided to bring it online. And as a side note, the other side, now it's quickly gaining traction with their conventional customers as well. So this has a huge amount of yield potential, really nice grain quality. We've put it in checks against Pioneer as controls, and it's consistently beat that across a wide geography. The emergence on it is really strong, and it may look like a bit of a shaggy hybrid. I guess this is what Fred was talking about. The ear height is a little bit uneven. You look at it, but they said the same thing about 1197, and it's got a lot of yield on it. So this one has quickly become gained quite a following, and this definitely one to look at. Thanks. Yeah, Mac, appreciate that. Quick shout out to your customers that are Amish and are looking for a good hand picking variety. 62G22 is awesome. The ear height on it is just about perfect, and that open husk, that has done very well in hand picking situations on the 62G22. But I think that's about, yeah, sorry. Let's see here on the 66G25, 112 day. This one has also been in the lineup for quite a long time. I know there's some folks on the call here that have planted this on the farm. Very good test weight, and nice grain quality. Has a lot of yield, very good stalks and roots. Can handle some drought stress for sure. I would say pretty slow dry down on this, but typically is very consistent. And this thing has moved all the way into the panhandle of Texas and done extremely well. So it's able to move east, west, and south, and has always performed well. If you're familiar with 49K70, some of those genetics are in this one. Obviously that's an earlier hybrid, but some of those base genetics are there. And so this one does have that early vigor and emergence of the 49K. Not quite as fast, but the one thing I'll mention, I'm sorry, I forgot earlier, the 62G22, that 110 day we looked at, once you get your catalogs, you'll see there's 60 PM11, which is 109 day pure maize. They share similar genetics. So if you have a customer that likes 62G22 but wants a pure maize trait, this system, the 60 PM11 is a great, is based almost, it's not the exact same hybrid, but it's very, very close. And in addition, the 66G25 is very, very close to the 66 PM19. So if you're looking for that that pure maize in 112 day, and you know the 66G25, the 66 PM is very, very similar.
Okay, and last hybrid we'll talk about today is the Viking 8214 at 114 day. Like the bullet point says, this is a true tropical type hybrid. It likes heat, can take some stress. It can, this is a hybrid that can be pushed all the way down to the Mexico border very easily and be right at home in those situations. Very big flex ear on it with deep kernels. It is going to dry down about like 115 day due to that deep kernel depth. But you're definitely going to pick up a lot of silage yield off of this one. It's a very big plant. Like I said before, at 6'4", I've seen this thing throw ears at or above my head a few times. So there's definitely a lot of potential for some high quantity yields on silage with this product.
Yeah, so earlier question on dual purpose hybrids or grain silage hybrids. Great question. And actually, now that I look closely at the catalog, which unfortunately, many of you do not have in your hands, we messed up. So we should have, I think it's a great idea to tag all the dual purpose hybrids with, in the Viking side, we have used GS for grain silage, and we could use that designation, or we could use the DP for dual purpose. We'll probably need to do that going forward. And I'm sorry we missed the boat in this catalog. However, we do have a 2-page spread in this catalog, pages 14 and 15, where we actually identify all the grain silage hybrids. And if you look there, there's a listing of all the Blue River and Viking hybrids that we recommend for dual purpose. And when we do that not because it's tall, but because we actually have data, right? So we're not going to call something excellent for grain and silage unless we actually have silage data, either from private testing or from university trials that show it's above average for tonnage and above average for quality, so that it produces above average milk per ton and above average milk per acre. So if you see it on page 14 or 15 of your catalog, and that information is also available in the dealer binder, you'll know that it's excellent for a dual purpose. Some of the Viking hybrids I see are labeled with the GS, and so if you see that GS designation, that means grain silage, which again, we don't put that designation on there unless we have data to back it up. A little bit about seed treatments, and historically, for the last 5 or 6 years, all Viking organic hybrids have come with 2 seed coatings on there, Soil Biotics 1R and Sabrex. Soil Biotics 1R is a humic acid product that sometimes helps with emergence. It's not the silver bullet that we all wish we had for emergence, but it does help sometimes. Sabrex is a blended trichodermal and mycorrhizal species which help with season-long plant health and yield, and we really believe in Sabrex. We've seen enough data and we've used it for enough years that we believe it makes a difference. I don't know, 7 out of 10 times it's going to add yield, sometimes 8 out of 10 times. And we use it on all of our organic corn and our conventional corn. So we really like that product. Not all the Blue River hybrids will have both coatings on there. Some of the Blue River hybrids will only have the Soil Biotics 1R, which actually is the same thing as Armor Up. If you're used to hearing that word Armor Up to describe the coating that's been on Blue River seed corn, Soil Biotics 1R is the same product. And I see a question there. Will the silage specific hybrids from Blue River still be available? 43L96. Absolutely. We will continue to carry the silage specific hybrids, but we won't list them as dual purpose because they can't, you don't want to take those hybrids for grain. So just good question. Another question, Rob, when you say gem, are you talking about G-E-R-M, germination? Or do you mean the word gem? Okay, so germination. So yeah, so germination obviously is crucial. The most important feature, even really more important for organic farmers than conventional farmers, is plant stand, because if you get a poor plant stand, not only do you reduce your yield, but you increase space for weeds to grow, right? So we absolutely test all of our hybrids, all of our hybrid seed, every single lot and every single seed size gets tested when it comes out of the field, but it gets retested in January of the year we sell it. And we test for warm germination, and then we use a saturated cold test as well, and it has to meet minimum spec on those before we will sell it. And that sometimes causes problems because we'll take orders for seed that we own inventory of, and then later on we'll find out, oh, it actually doesn't meet our germ spec, so we'll have to throw away that seed, and that causes heartburn. But obviously it's a lot more important that we be delivering seed that has a good germination. And so that's super crucial to us. Hopefully that answers your questions. Matt put in a comment which of the leafy flowers will be available this year. So again, basic message on the coatings there. All of the organic corn will have at least one of these. Will have at least Soil Biotics 1R on it, and some of the Blue River hybrids will have both Soil Biotics 1R and Sabre-X, and all the Viking hybrids will have both. If you want to make sure that the seed you're getting has both, or you want to make sure that the seed you're getting only has Soil Biotics 1R, please call us and we will help you sort that out, because it's not simple. Otherwise, we would just make a list. So you're gonna have to get help with that one. All right, we're going to jump ahead to soybeans, and we want to start here with the same way we did with corn. If you would take a second to type into the chat box what you think of as the 5 most important characteristic for an organic soybean variety, we would really appreciate it, just to make sure that we're using the variety selection criteria that's important to our customers and dealers. We've been, again, asking this of all dealers as we have crossed the country at our dealer meetings. So if you could take a second and type in the thing that you think is the most important, or the 3 things you think are the most important for an organic soybean variety, we'd sure appreciate it. And while you're doing that, I think we'll just keep rolling in the interest of time. So yeah, these are our characteristics, the things that up until this year, well, our most recent iteration, to use the modern word, our most recent version of our soybean selection criteria for organic farms. Plant type and plant height have been number 1. So we want soybeans that are fairly bushy, and we want soybeans that get tall. And those are important characteristics to us, because we want to fill up that row as soon as we can and get some canopy to prevent weed growth, right? Or to reduce weed growth. Aphid tolerance has been number 3 for us, but it feels like that is falling off the back, because it doesn't feel like, especially for Blue River, many of the Blue River customers, aphid tolerance is fairly low down on their list because they simply haven't had an aphid problem. We are going to continue to definitely have aphid tolerant soybeans in our lineup, and we're going to continue to test aphid tolerant beans, but it's probably going to move down to 6 or 7, frankly, because some of these other things are more important. And you can see the rest of the characteristics, and I'm not going to go through them all right here. But again, if there's something that's really important to you, please let us know, because we want to know about that. And there's things, you know, Viking has been a Northeastern regional brand across the Northeast third of the US. So we're not used to thinking about things like frog eye leaf spot and some other unique and some other sort of limited geography diseases. So we need to know about those things that are important. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jake and to Matt to talk about specific products. Take it away.
All right, we'll try to be quick. And again, we're not going to talk about every bean in the that's available. We'll kind of touch on some of the highlights here. First one being the Viking 0821 / Blue River 07 DC8. This is a bean that both companies have been selling, in their own bag. It's available both ways, Blue River or Viking bag this year. But we just wanted to make it clear that this is, in fact, the exact same bean that both companies have been selling here the past couple of years. But this is a bean that was developed out of the Dakotas, Minnesota area at a 0.8 maturity. As it moves south, which it does quite well, it kind of floats its maturity a little bit to act a little later, closer to that 1.0. But make no mistake, this thing moves south very, very well. It maintains its height, it maintains its bushiness, it fills a row, and it competes with some of the best 2.0 beans that are available on the market quite handily. Matt,
Yeah,
do you have anything to add on that one?
I'll just add that this one has been an absolute top seller for us. It's definitely an all-star. I've had it. It's topped the University of Vermont trials a couple years in a row in the East, as well as being able to move south, as you mentioned, and float maturity down, and plant very well alongside a mid group 1 as well to a 1.2. So this one has been a great product.
Thanks, Matt. And then onto our Viking 1.2. This has been a very successful bean for us at its maturity, especially going east into eastern Minnesota and Wisconsin and Michigan. It's been a top yielder, top performer across on farm and in trials. You see that 2-year average of near 70 bushels in Wisconsin. Kind of checks a lot of boxes for me in terms of its ability to handle stress. Disease tolerance, it's got cyst nematode on it, it's got Phytophthora tolerance, just stands real good, fills a row quite well. So I think it hits a lot of good aspects that we need on organic farms with this bean. It is a larger seeded bean. This is one that could be in one of those 110,000 seed count bags that Herb talked about. It kind of depends on the year, but still takes away nothing from it. It definitely brings a lot of yield potential.
And Jake, if I could just really quick add some of the nomenclature on the beans for Blue River. The 0.7 obviously is what we pinned it at, but the DC, that's going to be IDC and cyst tolerance and resistance there. So that's, if you see the DC, that's what we're indicating with that.
And I'll just add to that, the Viking brand, if it has an N on the end, that means it's a cyst nematode soybean. The other thing I'll add is that we've gotten several dealer requests to bring back 12A2, which has been a really popular Blue River 1.2. So we're listening to that, and we're definitely going to look at it. I've identified one of the longtime seed growers for Blue River, and actually is a seed grower for Viking as well, Gary Hansen in Fairfax, Minnesota, has a field of 12A2, a small field, and so we have some seed stock held back. We're going to evaluate yield this year, look at the variety, talk to people like yourselves, and if there's a compelling reason to bring it back, we absolutely will. Obviously, we don't want to carry 40 soybean varieties, so we have to make some tough decisions. I didn't really talk about that at the beginning, and I guess I'll just mention that as long as I'm on the subject right now. We are going to have to make tough decisions on products, right? We don't want to have 45 corn hybrids and 40 soybean varieties, and so, but we don't want to do that just based on what we think here in our little office. We want to do that based on what our dealers are and our customers ultimately, what's important to them. So we absolutely will look at sales numbers, but when we're cutting varieties or thinking about cutting varieties, we're going to reach out, talk to dealers, and talk about what we think is a good replacement and whether that's a fit. So just know that we are going to be absolutely taking input from dealers when we make these decisions, dealers and customers.
Thanks, Matt. Moving on, a couple of standards for us in the Viking lineup in that mid group 1. 15-18 for me, when I'm evaluating soybeans, this is the one that every other 1.5 is competing against for space in our lineup. Been a very solid product for Viking, both as a conventional and as an organic bean. Fills a row really well. It's not quite as tall as some others around it, but I think it makes up for it in its branching ability and just filling in those wide rows. I've seen it even in 36-inch rows on farms do quite well as far as getting to canopy, blocking out that sunlight from those weeds. And it also has a lot of good defensive characteristics to things like white mold, sudden death, some of our Midwestern diseases that have been very prevalent in the past few years. And then a little bit newer bean to complement it here with the 1718, you're going to pick up a little bit more height on this one, but pretty close to the same branching ability in terms of filling that role. Excellent tolerances to white mold, brown stem, IDC. Even in this year here in Minnesota, where IDC is amplified, it seems, due to the drought last year, and then going into this year, things are getting dried again. This one's doing quite well, holding its own, and I think it's going to have another successful year on farm in terms of yield. Onto a couple more good crossover soybeans that have been staples for the Viking lineup, and I know the 22 DC6 for Blue River has been one of your top sellers the past few years. Both of these beans, I think, check a lot of boxes that we need, both on conventional and organic farms. They both bring a ton of yield. They both bring exceptionally good plant health and disease resistance. One thing I'll say about the 2155 22 DC, another hybrid or another variety that tends to float maturity a little bit. I've had customers tell me they swore it was a 2.5 or 2.6 down in central Iowa, and I've also had customers swear it was a 2.0 here in Minnesota. So it definitely adapts itself to the zone where it's being planted. And then the 2418 last year was probably one of our top yielders in trials, not only our own, but also in a lot of public data. Wisconsin, it had great years. Illinois, it showed up really well, as well as Ohio. So there's definitely a good range of motion and adaptability in both of these going east to west.
Yeah, and I'll just add the 22 DC6. Sure, I'll just add the 22 DC6 is our second best-selling bean. It's in, just a huge amount of yield. It topped the Ohio trial for us. A couple of years ago, Ohio State University has an organic trial. I've seen this up in the Finger Lakes of New York. The dude does extremely well. Nice big fat leaf and consistently high yielder. So. Yep.
All right, moving on to some later maturities here. The Viking 2702, almost immediately after we launched it, this one had a lot of success. We had one dealer in central Iowa here a couple of days ago who emphasized early growth as a top characteristic he's looking for in beans. And he plants this one himself. He grew it for seed, and that was one of the reasons he planted it. Very strong emergence, very strong early growth, and it really brings a lot of yield to the table in that maturity. I think it holds true to its 2.7 maturity with good standability, and it out yielded one of our top performers for a while, the 2188, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Kind of a little bit of a thorn in a lot of our sides where that thing keeps performing year after year. And then before I turn it over to Matt on the 2.9, I'll just talk real quick on the 31. This one was a brand new variety last year for Viking. And it immediately saw success both on farms and in trials. We could not keep that one in stock last fall. I want to say we sold out of that one a couple of times after we found another source, brought some in, sold it immediately. So very, very successful being at a 3.1 to kind of fill some needs that we had in southern Iowa across to Ohio. So keep looking forward to that bean and how it's going to perform. I'll let Matt talk on the 2.9.
Yeah, so the 2.9 29 DC5, this one's been a very, very solid. I'd call this a solid, stable product. Very respectable yields, very solid performance, and I'd say it brings a little bit more height. Definitely a slightly taller bean. Obviously, that's not an indication of yield, but some growth habit that some folks are looking for. And it's just been we brought it in to kind of fill a gap as we moved forward in the maturity groups, and this one has fit that bill really well for us. Yeah, and kind of it sits very close to our number one top seller, 34A7. This bean is extremely popular. I think part of the reason is because, as Jake has mentioned, this ability of the varieties to shift their maturity a little bit. This one, some swear it's a 3.2, some swear it's a 3.4. It's planted in Maryland quite a bit in a solidly Group 4 region. And I would say that the one thing about it is it almost seems like continues to set pods higher and higher. It's definitely an older variety, but it is very adaptable and extremely high yielding. I've seen it do 70 bushel in Pennsylvania. So just great performance and solid bean in that early Group 3. Sorry, the 35 DC2. This one, we were almost looking at it as a potential replacement for 34A7. It's definitely got a little more better disease package with the IDC and cyst, but extremely good yield as well. They're going to kind of fight for that slot probably, and going forward, it'll be tough to evaluate this group, but the 35 DC2 brings a ton of yield and a really nice growth habit, not as tall as the 34A7 that potentially can stretch out quite a bit.
Right, and then, just to confuse everyone just a little bit more, we threw another new hybrid in here in the Viking lineup at a 3.4, or variety, I should say, I'm sorry. This one looked very attractive to us last fall with its ability to stand into the fall, good emergence scores, and a lot of just top end yield potential on this one, going across the I-states into Nebraska even. So definitely a good range of adaptability, good stress tolerance. But like Matt said about the previous two, we're definitely going to be evaluating all three of these for that same space in that 3.4 to 3.5 RM.
Okay, we've got a few more soybean things to talk about. We'll try to roll through it quickly so we can get to alfalfa. Virtue is a new brand for us. Viking launched one Virtue variety in 2021, and I think Blue River had some as well. And you'll see that Virtue V in front of several of the soybeans in this catalog that you'll be receiving this coming week. All that is a signal that it comes from that Virtue program, because they require that as part of licensing a variety from them. They require that their name be part of the integrated into the seed guide and into the product name. And these are, so we've broken them out here. So we didn't integrate the Virtue varieties in with the rest of them, although in the catalog, they're fully integrated with all the varieties by maturity. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about every single variety here or just really hit the highlights.
Yeah, Mag, I think we'll just hit a couple of the highlights on these. So many of them being brand new to both Matt and I. We're still learning about a lot of them. A couple that we can highlight though, one being that V1821. Like Mac said, we sold that last year as a conventional bean. A lot of top end yield for it. It definitely hit that late group 1 maturity that we always seem to be struggling to find a fit in there. It is a yellow hilum, but it's not going to bring you a ton of protein that you would think with most yellow hilum beans. It is just average, but it definitely has the yield to make up for it with exceptional standability and good overall disease resistance. And then I'll mention the Virtue 2122, very impressive yield potential. It actually out yielded our best seller, the 2155 22 DC last year in our trials, averaging 62 bushels across 6 locations. That's including 2 locations in South Dakota, which basically didn't get rain and from June 15th to September 1st, and it was still hitting in the 40s out there. So very impressive, nice, tall, bushy bean. It's going to fill a row extremely well. It's definitely got a lot of yield potential to it. So it's definitely one that we want to keep eyes on moving forward.
Yeah, I'll
Matt,
just
do you have
add.
any more to add to those?
Yeah, I'll just add real quick that, you know, the Virtue team, as they've launched this brand, has done an excellent job of testing across the country. So check their website out, and there's a lot of testing locations. They've put these up against the top varieties in the country, whether it's Asgrow, Progeny, or others. So, you know, these have been heavily tested, and they only move forward with ones that have really hit some solid performance. So the 1821 was topping trials in the Dakotas, and the 2122 we were also evaluating very closely to potentially replace 22 DC6. So that's just, they have a great website. It's worth checking out. The one thing on the 29, this one had the best IDC ratings, and very stable. We saw it out in the plot, and it does look really good. The one highlight here on this slide is definitely the 3.6. This one, there was a product there that Blue River carried this year. It was the Virtue 3.7, really nice variety. Although Virtue, kind of getting back to what I just mentioned on the testing, ran it through its paces, and it just did not. It just was not nearly as competitive as this 3.6, and they didn't hesitate to yank it. So we've decided to go forward with the 3.6. The testing on it looks really great. So we're excited. I haven't seen it yet, but this one we are pretty excited about. And I know there's a few folks from down south on the phone. So the 4.1, this one we launched, and actually surprisingly had a very high protein scores. So this one is being evaluated with some buyers like Stonebridge. So this, as for a Black Highland food grade potential with this one, but ton of yield, and topped some plots for us in Kentucky last year. Definitely needs to be on your better ground, but this one has a lot of yield potential for a 4.1. I'll just really quickly go over these. The Virtue 4.5, this is definitely more of the stable product on this. It was the first Virtue bean we launched. Really quick to canopy, huge amount of vigor, very good yields, very solid yields across geographies. This has been a great product for us, and I know some folks on the phone have grown it. The 4.9, ton of yield in Eastern North Carolina. Very exciting product. Maybe doesn't have the stability of the 4.5. And then we did launch the 5.4. I'm looking at you, Ben Haynes, and the fellas down in Eastern North Carolina that hopefully are going to take a look at this. Really good product, and we're excited about moving forward with a 5.4. So definitely a kind of back into that long season options for the company now as well. So.
We're running out of time, so I will run through this really quickly. There are 4 varieties in the Viking Blue River Organic Seed Catalog that require licensing. They're listed on this slide, and there is when you get your dealer binder, if you don't already have it, there will be a copy of the license in the back, which you can make a copy of and have your customer sign it and then send it into the office. Or you can also go to the website and have them sign it virtually or online. And Eli, if you could go to the next slide. So this is the Albert Lee Seed website. The same functionality will be available on the Viking Blue River Organic Seed website. If you click on resources and then you click on product licenses, you'll see there's 4 soybeans that are listed. If you were to click on one of those 4 soybeans, it would take you to a typable PDF, and you can fill out the form and submit the license that way. And these are the 4 products in question. They're all from Iowa State. There's not going to talk about them in depth because we want to get to alfalfa, but they're all 4 of them yellow hilums, and they have different profiles for obviously maturity, but also protein. Some of them are very high protein, like the 1029 and the 3054. Some of them are medium protein, They're all yellow hilum. I will just call out that Iowa 3054 is extremely popular with food companies and was the #1 selling organic bean for the Viking Albert Lee seed brand last year. Viking 2188 is one we've sold for a long time and is the worst standing bean I've ever sold. So I just want you to be aware of it. It's gonna, when the leaves start to fall off in the fall, it's gonna lean down and look really ugly. It does stand back up and you are able to combine it, but I gotta say it's pretty scary. Not everywhere, but in some locations where, especially more high fertility locations, but we've never had a customer that could not combine it. And I think in the interest of time, let's just roll ahead. All right. I'm gonna let Elia talk about alfalfa, and here you go.
All right, well done, everybody. Somehow 2 hours and 50 minutes on Zoom feels a lot longer than 7 hours in person. So I appreciate you guys all sticking around, and hopefully most of you are still awake at this point. Just like Mac mentioned on the corn and soybeans, this is not all of the alfalfa products that are in your catalog. These are just some of the highlights that we went through here. And again, we'll move through them pretty quickly. We're very close to the end here. I think we're going to be able to wrap up on time. But we are pretty optimistic about our organic alfalfa production. It's kind of exciting. This is one of the areas Maury's come back in to help us with, and he's making some trips to Canada over the next month. He's going to visit some alfalfa fields in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And we inherited some nice alfalfa production contracts from Blue River. And so we're kind of optimistic between the work we've been doing and they've been doing behind the scenes that we could actually bring some organic alfalfa products to the table this year. Historically, it's been pretty hit and miss, and we won't really know until these things are in a bag and tested. But we are optimistic that we'll have better quantities than ever of these varieties that I've listed here. So the first one's pretty exciting. The 444 LH has been kind of a unicorn for us, getting a leafhopper alfalfa produced organically. This is kind of the best of the best. This is going to be right up there with the best leafhopper products that are being sold conventionally at this point. Latest generation leafhopper protection, along with top end yields and quality. This would align very closely with the 342 LH that we've been selling conventionally under the Viking brand. Jake loves that thing, and this is going to be really a one-to-one with that. These next two products, the 372 HD and Finch, I consider to be very comparable products here. The 372 is probably the best-selling Viking alfalfa of all time. Excellent in high management situations, good disease package. And you can also see it's got an ultra pure badge on it, which is pretty cool. Most of these things, maybe the other ones come in as ultra pure or not, but we're confident enough because of the production area and the seed stock on the ones we do tag with ultra pure that we're going to be able to bring that forward at 99.9% pure. Finch is a new one to me, but it's out of the same breeding program as the 372 HD. Very comparable, maybe a slight step forward in disease resistance, incremental step. So maybe a little better on poorly drained soils. Again, high management, lots of cuttings. Either of these products here, 372 or Finch, are going to perform with the best alfalfas on the market there, period. As we move into this class here, again, Roadrunner is probably the best-selling Blue River alfalfa of all time. It's been very good product. It was a while ago now, but I think it won the Forage Super Bowl at one point with a touch of tall fescue in it. 3800 has been one of our best-selling alfalfas of all times. Organic alfalfas of all times, and frankly, that's based on availability. So both these products are probably a slight step down from the ones on the previous slide if you're under super high management for just flat out yield and quality, but they're not very far off the pace. But both of these products have been sold to organic dairies all over the country and had a ton of positive feedback on them. The other product that's not on this slide that I just give a shout out to is the 340M. We've sold it for a long time. It's a slightly lower fall dormancy than the 3800 and the Roadrunner, but a very consistent product. It's a multi-leaf, which has kind of gone out of favor, and you know, people are looking more at the digestibility of the stems now than the leaf to stem ratio. But 340M has been going to dairies since we've been selling organic seed, you know, going on 20 years, we've been selling that product to dairies and with a lot of success. Red Falcon's a new one that's available conventional. We should have a Viking conventional alfalfa right next to it called 394 AP, if anybody's familiar with that one. Those two are very comparable products, and those are really bring the highest level of disease resistance possible. These are APH2 resistance along with some resistance to APH3. And so on the real heavier soils, something like the Red Falcon or the 394 AP, although they are not produced organically, would be the type of product you'd be going for.
And I'll just quickly add, the Red Falcon has this high expression of branch rooted, you know, so it truly is a branch rooted variety.
Thank you. Yeah, good shout out, Matt. Yeah, that and the 394, again, both those have got that branch rooted expression, high expression. You know, they're taproot varieties, but they branch out more than most taprooted varieties. And then just kind of, you know, these are, you know, hardy is a great choice for plow downs. It's basically vernal. Super good in well-drained soils, low cut systems, 1-2 cuttings, gonna be good for hay. Otherwise, it will often get used as the cheapest product on the block for a plow down alfalfa. Honest John is kind of a unique product. We try to keep a better alfalfa in there with a touch of red clover. I think red clover really brings something to the table. Yield. It is going to slow the dry down a little bit, but you get more yield 9 out of 10 times. It takes heavier soil where alfalfa is on a struggle. The red clover really fills in those places, so that's a really nice product. Again, for people that are chopping or that can live with a couple extra drying days. So this is really kind of falls into the alfalfa product. So this product, the Organic Dairy Pro, is 90% alfalfa, and it will go towards your alfalfa volume discount. So you sell a bag of Dairy Pro, it works towards your alfalfa volume. It's just got a little touch of grass in it. I'm a big proponent of grass in your alfalfa. I just think mixed stands are healthier, yield more, more insect resistant. So it's a nice way to just get a little touch of grass in there out of the gate. No mixing necessary. And again, we've added a couple grass mixtures to the Blue River, the Viking Blue River catalog this year, again, because we really feel like they complement, more than anything, they complement these other forage products that have historically been sold under that brand. Mainly the hay one there is a great alfalfa companion. You can plant it straight for hay, or 4 to 8 pounds in with your alfalfa makes for a more diversified hay stand that's going to be more resilient, yield more, less filling. The pasture is, well, pasture. All right, so and I think we squeaked in right on time, so which is pretty impressive that you guys have held on for this long. Maybe let Herbs kicked it off. I'll let him close it out, but I just want to give a big shout out from everybody at Albert Lee Seed House. We're really excited about this, and we're really excited to build relationships with all of you. So thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks, Ilya. And just to reiterate, like we did today, we're going to get this information sent out to those of you that don't have that as soon as possible. But in the meantime, don't be afraid to reach out to any of your former contacts within the company, and we'll look forward to speaking with you either in person or one-on-one in a Zoom call as soon as possible. So everybody have a great day. Thanks for your time today. We know everybody's schedule is busy. It's a Saturday. That really means a lot to us, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.